Welcome to the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tapman.
Welcome to the Pelican Brief. I'm your host, David Tapman. We want to start off 2024 with a kickoff, a preview, if you will, of the year ahead in Louisiana politics. We have a lot of new faces. We have a new governor, a new attorney general, a new insurance commissioner, a new treasurer. We have a lot of new statewide elected officials. We also have many new legislators in the legislature. About a third of the legislature, they're in new positions now. And in addition to that, we have a new Speaker of the House in Philip DeVilliers from Eunice, Louisiana, and a new President of the Senate, Cameron Henry, from Metairie, Louisiana. So in addition to those leadership positions, a lot of the committees of jurisdiction chairs are new and different. There are a lot of familiar faces, but the general tenor and direction of the legislature is a little different. So we're going to cover that in this episode, but before we get into that, I just wanted to take a moment to kind of talk to you about our show and about where we've been and about where we think we're going. So when we talk about the Pelican Brief, we wrapped up 2023 with a lot of interviews for statewide elected office. We interviewed a large number of legislators. And, you know, look, we're learning on our feet. I'm not a pro podcaster, and I'm sure some of you are making comments about that and laughing as we speak, but you know, we had a hard time getting our footing. I mean, candidates wanted to be on the show, but were busy out there running for election and reelection. And it was just hard to book people and with all the things that they had going on. So we took a little hiatus after the elections to sort of regain our footing and kind of find out where we were. And it's been tough because we want to provide information to our listeners, our friends, our clients, the general public. And we have the contacts to be able to bring good content, insider information to our listeners. We have the technology to put out a quality program, equipment and some know-how. Manpower is a little difficult because everyone in my firm is so busy right now. We're so busy preparing for the regular legislative session, and it's just hard to pull anybody off of that and allow, for their time to allow to help with this. So the Pelican Brief is and will be in the near future written, researched, performed, edited, and distributed by me, myself, and I. At some point, we may get a little help, but for now, it's just me, and I'll do the best that I can to get information out to our listeners. So you can help. Please share our program with your political junkie friends. We're always going to tell the truth. We're not going to be the newspapers or the radios or the televisions who seem to all flavor their reporting. We won't do that. We'll tell you the truth. You can also help by engaging, us on social media, by commenting on what we have been discussing, what you would like to see discussed, and about how you think we're doing. So we're going to keep working to try to make the program better. So let's jump back now to 2024 and what we think is ahead. What we know is ahead is a special session on redistricting. Due to court action, which I know most people who would listen to this show know about, the Louisiana legislature and some other states have been directed to redraw their congressional districts so that they can have more balanced representation. In this particular case, Judge Dick basically told the legislature, you can either redraw the district lines or I will redraw them for you. And I don't think anybody including listeners to this program, want to judge drawing district lines. So newly elected Governor Jeff Landry has called a special session to address the congressional districts. The governor also included in his call the redrawing of Supreme Court districts, the Louisiana State Supreme Court. An effort to reapportion the Supreme Court has been added, and the purpose of it, I guess, initially was to add a second black majority district. There's only one district right now that is represented by a minority, and so we'll get into a little bit of that as we discuss it. But the big issue that is going to be the most controversial, in addition to the congressional lines and the Supreme Court lines, are changing Louisiana's election process from an open primary system, or as some people refer to it, a jungle primary, to a closed primary system. This will be highly controversial. It will not be as uniform as the other two issues that are before the legislature. So we'll go into it. The second special session is to deal with crime. So that session will happen sometime probably around February the 19th and will likely go into early March. This is an issue that was brought up very often by Governor Landry, that crime is a problem, and he believes that some of that crime has to do with some of the changes that were made during the criminal justice reform sessions. And so criminal justice reforms measures will certainly be on that call, and it will be something that when it comes out, we will address more directly. But that's a month or so away before we see that. And then, of course, we'll have the regular session, which will begin on March 11th and no later than June 3rd. And remembering that every year the Louisiana legislature has a regular session. In even-numbered years like this year, it is a session of general jurisdiction without any tax measures. And then, of course, in the regular session in an odd-numbered years, it is what we refer to as a fiscal session with limitations on items of general jurisdiction. So there is further discussion and talk about a potential constitutional convention. This discussion has been going on for a while, but it seems that it may have more traction than usual. So there are a lot of things to be worked out with this kind of convention. The probably most significant will be what subject matter will be included. Will it open up the entire Constitution for discussion? And who will elect the delegates to the Constitutional Convention? Will they be appointed by the governor? Will the legislature sit in that arena, or will there be elections for Constitutional Convention delegates across the state? It's been the 70s since we had a Constitutional Convention, and you can keep an eye out for that. That will be, if you're a political junkie, that will be very, very entertainment. So it's going to be a busy year in Louisiana in 2024. So stay tuned. We'll cover it all. We'll answer your questions, and we'll try to come up with good, solid answers for you, or find those answers if we can't answer it ourselves. So let's go back and talk about the session on reapportionment. Louisiana has 6 congressional districts, and therefore 6 congresspersons. We have, and I'll just list them. United States Representative Troy Carter, Garrett Graves, Clay Higgins, of course, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, Congresswoman Julia Letlow, and, of course, Majority Leader Steve Scalise. The courts have determined that 2 of the Louisiana congressional districts should be majority minority. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly what they said, but I'm trying to dumb this down so that we can kind of hit it and move on. The conventional wisdom would suggest that the legislature is going to draw that second minority majority or black congressional district out of the Baton Rouge area seat, which is currently held by Garrett Graves. I'm not going to get into all the reasons why, but, issues relative to Graves's endorsement of Jeff Landry's opponent in the governor's race, the fact some issues relative to the speaker's race in the United States Congress relative to Steve Scalise, some other issues. That may be the district that is redrawn. If you read a lot of the press publications, there is some suggestion that perhaps that district will be redrawn to perhaps give some advantage to State Senator Cleo Fields. Again, that's all a lot of buzz. We'll have to see what happens. Remember this, Representative Graves can run in his old congressional seat against whoever if it's a majority-minority district, and maybe still win. It's not inconceivable that a white could win a black district and a black could win a white district. It's not highly likely, but it's not inconceivable. One of the things you have to remember that is you don't have to live in the district to be able to run for a congressional seat. So if Congressman Graves decided that the new district doesn't look good for him and he decides to run against Julie Letlow, he could. He doesn't have to live in that district. All he has to do is move into it after he's elected. The rules are a little squirrely when it comes to congressional seats. So keep a close eye on that. That'll be a big discussion, and we'll know soon enough. It's an 8-day special session, and I expect it to move quickly and definitively. So that was what the special session was called about. But there have been some other items added. As I mentioned before, the state Supreme Court, we have 7 Supreme Court justices in Louisiana. There has been a push to add a second majority black district, a majority minority district, and that's likely to happen. But what also may happen, if you look at some of the bills that have been proposed, it is an expansion of the court to go from 7 members to 9 members. At that point, one would consider, if you looked at the judge's ruling on the congressional seats, you would think that perhaps there would be 2 new black minority seats. So 1/3 of the population is black, and therefore with 9 seats, 1/3 of the court would be majority minority. Also, the Supreme Court is a little different in the discussions because it's been a long time since the Supreme Court has been realigned or reapportioned. And so there is what's called malapportionment in the Supreme Court. You have some districts, and I'm just going to ballpark this. You have some districts, some Supreme Court districts that have 100,000 voters in it, and some that have over 500,000 in it. So it's malapportionment. And if you consider the one man, one vote principle of our government, you would think that it would be time to do that. Even if you didn't change any of the other things, just reapportion the districts so that they're generally equal within some percentage of difference that the Justice Department uses. So we'll look at that. We'll keep an eye out on it. People are all over the place on it, and it's going to make for a very interesting conversation. So a lot of the theater in this particular session is likely to come about in the discussion of closed primaries. The governor supports legislation to go to a closed primary system in Louisiana. So right now it's what we would call a jungle primary or an open primary. Everybody qualifies, and the top 2 vote getters go on to the general election. Now, that is if no person gets 50% plus 1 vote. Under the closed primary system, the Republicans would all run against each other in a primary, and the top Republican would advance to the general, and the Democrats would all run against other Democrats, and the top Democrat would advance to the runoff. And there are many states where that is how it's done. If that were to happen, the real question is, what is the impact that it has? Well, we've had that system in Louisiana before, and we got rid of it. If you look across the nation, there are many different processes for the way that individuals are elected. Louisiana is unique and in the minority in terms of how we do our system, but there are a number of considerations when doing something like this, one of which, again, this is information that I'm getting from legislators, cost considerations. Right now, many of the elections in Louisiana are won by candidates who are unopposed. Would that change if it was a Republican seat and a Democrat knew they could get to a runoff and have maybe a better chance, or likewise a Republican could get to a runoff in a minority seat and have a better chance because they would make the runoff with perhaps not very much vote, or they would make the runoff because no one was in the primary with them. So the Democrats, for example, would beat each other up, and then the Republican, would run free or run easy. I'm using this as an illustration. Hope nobody beats me up on this, but it definitely changes a little bit. There may be more people who would be in that number. There's also the consideration that there were a lot of races in Louisiana that were also won in the primary, so 50 plus one vote, right? 50% plus one vote. So, again, everybody's going to bring their own data. The data can be twisted and turned to say what you want it to say. There will be paid lobbyists on both sides of this issue. The governor wants it, so my guess is he likely gets it. Not seen a governor come into office and not get what they want early on. And so watch closely. This is going to be very interesting. And this was one that may likely not fall, this discussion may likely not fall along party lines. What do I mean by that? There will be Republicans who will be against this. There will be Democrats who will be against this. And so it won't be just a Democrat-Republican thing. It's going to be pretty much maybe more about political ideology. There are those that believe that a closed primary provides that the candidates from both sides will be more extreme, but who's to know, who's to say? They do it in other states. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Look at government, look at our politics. You tell me what's working and what's not. So, one of the things I would tell you is as you follow along with this, there is a great resource for you to follow along. That is the state legislative website. It is www.legis.la.gov. You could also Google Louisiana legislature. It's going to come up. You can watch committee hearings. You can find out who your legislators are. You can read the bills. You can actually even go in there and set up your own tracking. And if you want to find out how to do that, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to show you how to do it. It's one of the best websites in the country. I'm sure it'll continue to be. You can also follow along with what's going on with our show. That's the short and easy way to do it. We're the Pelican Brief podcast. You can find us on all of the podcasting platforms. You can find us on YouTube. You can follow us on social media. Our social media tag on all platforms is at Pelican Brief 225. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you're on. If you want to view us on YouTube and see my mug, you can do that. Our YouTube handle is at the Pelican Brief 225. And you can also email us thepelicanbrief225@gmail.com. So that's our show for now. I am your host, David Tatman. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on the Pelican Brief.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.